one question that I'm asked very often when it comes to relationships, and that is, when did you know it was time for you to divorce and move on? And I don't think it was a big aha moment. I don't think that it was anything crazy. People never ask me whose fault was it, what happened. It's always just, when did you know? And the more I got to thinking about this, I realized that this is bigger than a marriage. This is a friendship. This is a working environment. This is with your kids. This is with so many relationships that we deal with. And so today I'm going to kind of break down how I decided that it was the right time to divorce and what I think happens in some of our relationships. So, welcome back to Unquiet You. Today, we are going to talk about the story of figuring out how I started loving myself enough to realize what relationships weren't good for me. So many people have asked me over the last couple of years, like, when did you know? What happened? When did you wake up and say, like, today's the day? Like, I think a lot of people think there's a magic word or a magic thing that happens, especially when you're in a marriage where we didn't necessarily have anything wrong. There was no affairs. There were no major things that happened that made me or forced me to divorce. And I think that a lot of times we start waiting for permission to make the decisions. It's like we're telling ourselves, whether it's a friendship, it's a career move, tons of different relationships, we wait for permission. It's almost like, well, if it's not bad enough, or if they haven't done X, Y, and Z, then you don't have permission to make a decision that's best for you. I also thought to myself many times, well, I'll know when something really bad happens. And the more I kept waiting and waiting, I realized it wasn't so much about him or what was going wrong on that side. It was more about me and the permission I was giving myself. And so I think sometimes we can sit really long on this. I think sometimes people are really, really good at making decisions and saying, like, I know today's the day and it's time. And I think other ones, for me, it took me a while because I felt like there was so much at stake, so many people involved in my marriage that I didn't want to make the wrong decision. And so I remember there was a conversation and, I had walked outside and asked to have a conversation with him. I didn't want to argue or point fingers or point blame. I just wanted us to figure out how to get back to us. And again, nothing had gone wrong. And so it was really a hard conversation because it wasn't really you did this and I did this. It was just, hey, here's where we're at and we don't want to be here. And so I waited and I waited. And I remember thinking, like, I just want him to have a will to fight for our marriage. And I just want one little shift. I want one little thing to happen. And it wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. And so I kept thinking, well, maybe it'll be next week. Maybe it'll be next month. Maybe after we get past this, or maybe this big event, things happen in life or whatever. And so I remember thinking that I was waiting for a big gesture because I was waiting for something bad to happen to tell me it was okay to divorce him. But I was also waiting for a really big gesture and I didn't even know what that was. And so I remember one morning about a month later, he was away on a guy's trip and I woke up and I just felt different. And so I pulled out my journal and I started writing and I watched myself write that I loved him more than I loved myself and that it didn't matter how much I loved him. It wasn't ever going to be enough for him to love me back. And so in that moment, I realized that was my answer. That was the shift. And it wasn't massive. It wasn't life-shattering or, I didn't wake up with this like huge relief necessarily, but I woke up with a peace that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And looking back, I realized this had actually happened a long time ago. And I had known for quite a few months that this was probably not going to work out. And I had asked a year before, as I started to watch things crumble, I had asked for a very simple request that we just spent time together. And the request wasn't reciprocated and it was kind of pushed to the side and life got in the way and all of the things. And I realized that I was married to two different people at the time. I was married to the person who we had created goals and dreams, and we had our household and things that we desired. And there was a version of him that was a very big people pleaser and always doing what others wanted him to do for their approval. And I don't say that because I think he's a bad person or he was wrong. I say that because I think we were just two very, very different people. And I realized that I couldn't be with someone who was two people. And I needed that version of him that we shared dreams and goals and we had a future planned and that sort of thing. And also, in all fairness, he had not gotten the version of me he met 17 years ago. And so I realized that I had become such a shell of me and who I was when we first met, that I wasn't able to show up in my marriage the way I wanted him to show up for me as well. And that's when I knew that I would do certain things. I would work and try to attempt certain things, but I think I knew deep down it was probably time. And so that January of that year, I've talked about this a little bit, but I decided to do really hard work on myself. I couldn't control him. I couldn't control anything outside of me or the people he surrounded himself with, but I could control myself. And I knew that I learned a long time ago from a coach that if I want to leave something, whether it's a job, a friendship, a relationship, anything, I want to be in the best version of myself and give it 100% so that when I do walk away, I don't feel like I could have done more. I walk away knowing I'm at peace with the decision. And so that's what I did. I did for the first time in 17 years, I started looking in the mirror and saying, you've got to make changes. The way I was thinking, I had to face really hard things. I had to look at myself and see where I was being really hard and not making the decisions that I truly desired. And a lot of it came from I had become such a big people pleaser. And I think when we are people pleasers, we always please the wrong people and we end up hurting the people that matter the most to us. And part of that was hurting myself. I would go above and beyond for someone else, even if it hurt me. Whether it was exhausting to me or it hurt my feelings or anything like that, I would still do it because I was such a people pleaser. And so the day that I woke up and I journaled that, I realized for the first time in 17 years, I actually loved myself again. And so I knew I had been trying to love him so much that he would love me back. And that morning I realized like I finally loved that person that I was, and I knew my standards were different at that moment and I couldn't keep accepting the things that I was accepting. And so people ask me about marriage, and I am such an advocate for marriage. I believe in marriage. I believe in love. I believe in beautiful relationships all around. I have not become cynical or hard. Actually, I've probably become the opposite of that. I actually probably believe in it more, but I also believe it has to be in two full people who truly love themselves, and maybe they're growing together, but they're also willing to take accountability for themselves and admit when something is off, or maybe they say or do something that they don't mean. I think that's when relationships form the strongest bond. Even in friendships, I think if you have one friend who is, you know, overly giving and giving and giving, and you have another friend who all they do is take, 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 at some point that relationship gets really, really strained. And it's not two full people looking to support each other, because I don't care what relationship I'm in, whether it's a friendship or a coworker, or, I have a ton of coaching friends, or even my clients. Like, every relationship I am in, I want to be where we both fully support each other and we're able to give 100%. When people often ask me the question, when did you know it was time for a divorce? When I look back, I don't think that that's the question really to ask. It's more, when did you decide that you weren't willing to leave yourself anymore? I realized that I got back to the version of me that I really loved, the person who had hope and dreams and laughed and was excited about life again. And I had to make a promise to myself that no matter what relationship I would be in, I was never going to leave myself, because I am my first relationship. Really, if I can't have a relationship with myself, I can't be enough for anyone else. Like I can't show up 100% for anyone else. And so whether you're questioning any relationship, whether it's a friendship or your partner, I would ask you to really do the hard work and look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you the best version of yourself? Are you loving yourself enough that you can show up 100% in another relationship? And I think asking that question allows us, and I also believe it attracts the same kind of people to us. I'm very much in my circle right now attracted to people who have really cool dreams and goals, and they want the best for me just like I want the best for them. And I know if I needed them, they're right there, just as if they know, they needed me, I would be right there. And I think that's a much better circle to be around than someone I'm always walking around on eggshells with, or feeling like I have to people please in order to keep things calm and exciting, calm for that person, or to be, I used to think I had to be like excitement for everyone. I had to provide the excitement. And so I would be very unhappy in the corner, but I would make sure everyone else had what they desired or were doing the things that they wanted. So I think just deciding that you're worth coming home to, that you're worth all of the things that you truly desire in your heart, you are worth receiving that as well as you become it. And so really practicing becoming that person is the big gift, I think, in life and relationships. So I think a lot of people confuse divorced people with, disliking marriage. And I think some people do. Some people say they'll never marry again. But I think it's such a bigger picture, and it's so much bigger than a divorce. It's really about the relationships we choose as humans to form with other people. So I hope that this answered some questions and also helped you see your own worth in every relationship that you're in. And if you're not in a relationship where you don't feel worthy, I would always say come back to yourself first before you make any decisions, and make sure you feel 100% loved by yourself and worthy of receiving all of the things that you desire. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, for being a little louder, a little bolder, and a whole lot more you. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you subscribed, left a review, and sent it to someone you think might need it. As always, stay unquiet.